Well, I've read a few attempts at explanation, and I know in my own case it's obviously tied in with the dinosaurs. I'm interested also in fantasy movies and so forth. I enjoy the work involved in the special effects aspect. I think the miniatures are fantastic, and I'm interested how they do these things, the explosions, the animated rays, not only from an enjoyment point of view, but also from a technical point of view, and I'm fascinated to see how they put these things together. I think generally human beings are interested in spectacle, the disaster movies and so forth, or even real life disasters. Everybody's very interested in seeing the news footage of the latest hurricane or earthquake damage and that sort of thing, and this is more of a safe way of being able to enjoy the interest in such spectacle that people have. And I also know that throughout history people have enjoyed and staged battles between fabulous beasts. You think even back to the Romans and so forth. People are interested in watching combat and between interesting kinds of creatures, and so when you get Godzilla fighting Biollante or King Ghidorah or some other monster, this is a battle on a grand scale that could never be seen in real life. It's a sort of a fantasy spectacle that is very easy to sit back and enjoy if you have the ability to suspend your initial disbelief and really enjoy it as for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that fandom, there are two main areas. There are those like me that enjoyed the movies as little boys and some little girls in the theaters, and then kind of put it on the shelf for a while, and the revival of the series has sort of reignited their interest. And so we find that a lot of the readers of our magazine are between the ages of 20 and 40, and they invariably write that they knew and loved this as a kid, and they didn't realize that the series had been revived. And so this is rekindled. I guess there's a lot of nostalgia in it, aside from the enjoyment of the genre for its own sake. And then of course there are the younger fans now who for whom the new Godzilla is the Godzilla, and I guess a lot of them of course have seen him on TV too, so they're being drawn in from all aspects. But I think this sort of revival of fandom is also now feeding on itself, and people are sort of realizing there are products out there, there are movies out there to be bought, there are other fans to communicate with, there are publications to be read, and finally many people are realizing, you know, I've got an outlet for this interest I have, and as we come together the whole process kind of builds momentum. Well, again, I don't like to pick just one favorite, but if somebody,
you wish, pick seven.
Okay, well I'll start. If I had to, if somebody's going to break my arm, I think I'd have to say Godzilla vs. the Thing, the 1964 film, because not only for sentimental reasons, I remember very clearly my dad taking me to see that in the theater, and this was the first time I'd seen Godzilla in color. It was an awesome experience, and part of the pleasure of that movie was at that age I didn't even think about, you know, this is a man in a suit or anything. I just accepted everything as was real, and I didn't even worry about how they did it. You know, pure enjoyment. That movie, though, I think had excellent production values. The story was really good. You know, it was a down-to-earth story that could have happened if there were such things in the world, how people would react to them and what events would unfold. So there were no aliens in it, and no time travel, no nothing. It was monsters thrust in the real world and how people reacted to it. I think that makes it a really believable, solid picture. The special effects are just top-notch. I think Tsuburaya was at his peak in that movie and tried several new techniques, some of which didn't work as well as he might have hoped, but he was always trying new things, which was part of his genius as a special effects man. And I loved the Godzilla suit. I thought he had just the right personality in there. There was a little bit of comedy when Mothra's dragging him by the tail and he's struggling, but that seemed appropriate, you know, and it wasn't clowning around. It was something that you could laugh at him, but it wasn't like he was trying to be funny there. He was an evil guy. The dubbing was great. The score was fantastic. I think among the best in the series, if not the absolute best. And the whole thing came together in that movie, I think. Of course, I love the original. And I also get a charge out of Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah because that's the only one I've ever seen. I went to Japan when that opened. You know, I didn't know there was going to be one every year from then on, and this was, I thought, an opportunity. My wife and I had lived there, and we went back for the opening, so it's the only one I've ever been to an opening at a Japanese theater, and I love King Ghidorah, and so that one too is a favorite of mine. Well, okay, I like King Ghidorah very much. He's spectacular, he's beautiful in a way. It sort of pulls together all of the awesomeness that you expect that these things are going to have. You know, he can fly and travel in space and spit lightning from his heads and create tornadoes with his wings and all kinds of things like that. I think Forey Ackerman wrote in an old issue spewing out 3 times as much destruction as any earth monster can all at once and so forth. So he's an awesome creation, and I just enjoy him not only for his physical aspect on the screen but for his potential as a character too. Part of the enjoyment is up here, and I think that King Ghidorah satisfies on many levels. I also like Titanosaurus very much because I think he, more than any other monster of the 70s, came to sort of project a living animal, a living monster. You know, Megalon and Gigan are too far out to be taken too serious, I think. But Titanosaurus, I love his voice, I love his color, you know, it's different. I love his height, I love the way his head moves when he walks, and he just seems alive. Even his motivation is kind of interesting. He's not a war monster that just comes and fights. He was a gentle dinosaur that was sort of commanded to fight. One more I'll add is Biollante. I think Biollante is a fascinating concept for a monster and very well executed too in the presentation in the movie. No, I don't think that this is their last film because they have a real money-making franchise there, and either they'll continue to produce the movies and license the merchandise, or they will rent out the franchise, and perhaps if they want to get out of the movie business, they'll allow another studio for a fee to continue making Godzilla movies. I think they are pulling a Death of Superman sort of publicity-generating thing here, and I don't think they're lying because this particular Godzilla in this film may well bite the dust, but he's got a son that looks just like him growing up, or he will when he grows up, and who can take over the series. So yes, this Godzilla will die, but no, this is not the last Godzilla film. Well, I wouldn't consider myself a collector in the sense that I see a series of items and say I must have every one of that series and then go to great lengths to fill in my collection. But I do have a lot of material that I pick up. I buy things that I'm personally interested in and that I like to look at or to read or perhaps to play with. In the case of a model, to build and so forth. You know, I won't buy everything. The Encyclopedia of Godzilla, for example, where they make minor variations from year to year. I have a couple of them, but I'm not going to buy all of them just because they're there. If certain things are reissued with a different cover again, partly because some of these things are so expensive and I just can't justify doing that. You could go drive yourself crazy trying to buy everything. But I have a lot of the Bandai toys. I have many model kits, and since starting G-Fan, I haven't worked on any of them. I saw a lot of them I put together, but many are still in the box. And I have a lot of books, and I have the films on Laserdisc and so forth. And then I have other interesting incidental things. A little Godzilla sake set with 2 cups, and you pour the sake out of Godzilla's mouth. I have a Godzilla shaver that somebody gave me, an electric razor. Not the best for a shave, but it's a great conversation piece. Another gift to me was the Godzilla toilet paper dispenser that roars when you take a sheet or maybe take too much. And so there are interesting side things that I'm interested in.